Hey, I was going through some stuff that I just recently gotten from BB Traders, and I figured I'd do a little assembly thing. Basically, some tools you might need. This is just strictly for new people, pretty well much, because a lot of people out there already know what to do. But, like I said, I'm still going to go through the steps. Go through a list of tools that are a good idea to have, on hand when you're getting ready to assemble something, and some optional stuff if you want to use it or not. Now, obviously, you're going to need your model to paint, and regulator hover tank is a pretty standard, simple, easy thing to paint or to assemble. There's 3 pieces total that you can see here. The tank body itself, the turret, and the stand up for it, because it's for this particular model, it's a hover tank, so it's supposed to give the appearance of being off the ground. Now, an optional piece, if you want, is for a base. I sometimes put vehicles on bases, sometimes I don't. It really depends on my mood. This particular time, I feel like putting it on a base. Another good thing to have on hand. Not that I'm sure I'll be needing it this time, but with other assemblies, an X-Acto blade. I mean, this one's beat to hell, but for what I need. A pair of side snips. Now, this is just a cheap pair I picked up at the craft store. You guys may have, you can use whatever you want, but something good to have on hand. And another thing that's good to have on hand is some files. I think these I bought are Gale Force 9 or something like that. I'm not sure. And this is going to be the main one I use. They're tiny files. They work great for vehicles and mechs, especially mechs when you get for those hard to reach places for filing off mold lines if they have any. And of course, one thing you're definitely going to need is glue. I use Apagap. You can use whatever you want. But another thing that, depending on what you're assembling, that's good to have on hand is a pin vise. Unfortunately, I don't have mine out right now, but I think it's just basically a small hand. Here it is. This is the model I use. Again, Gale Force 9. I like their stuff. But you can find cheaper stuff. You can get these at craft stores or not. This is if you want to pin something, which is, it's a good thing to have for pinning. But hey, I'm not going to be pinning anything on this particular model. But, okay, first of all, obviously we got these large chunks of extra metal here that I need to get rid of. Both of them have it. So, we can just take the side snips and snip it right off. Gone. And do that for this one. Snip right off. Gone. Okay, those parts are gone. There's nothing I really need to snip off for either turret. Now, the hover base, they've got a large chunk here. But you know what? You don't really have to worry about that because I just bend that off. No big deal. It's not really something you're going to see. So, right there you go. Bend off. And I might snip a little off here. Now, when I put something on a base, this is something I personally do for a lot of stuff. Because when I'm playing with someone who's not quite sure exactly what it is, it often helps. But I will often write the name of the vehicle, the mech, or whatever on the bottom of the base. That way, just make, when you get past, 4 or 5 different vehicles, or in mechs, makes it a little easier to remember exactly what the hell you're grabbing. So, basically what I want to do right now is I want to do a thorough look on the models for any flash or mold lines. But I see where I snipped off those pieces. There's some extra stuff, so I want to get a little closer to that, get it closer to the model, It'll save you on some filing later if you do this, but it's a good thing to do. So, got off about as much as I can there. Now there's some slight mold lines on this, not too bad. With some minimal filing I can get rid of it. And same with the other one. I can see some mold lines. You definitely want to look at stuff and in all different angles in the light, because it's best to do a thorough inspection now to find mold lines before you assemble or paint, especially before you prime, because they will show up pretty well. And like I say, here's a piece of flash. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, right there you can see it. I need to pull that off. But you definitely want to give them a thorough going over before, so you can try and get rid of any mold lines.
It was clear that Hitler had
Alright, well, I give it a good look. Give them a good, excuse me, give them a good look over. Saw where a lot of the mold lines are. So basically what I want to do is go along and do, these aren't too severe, so it doesn't require much to get rid of these mold lines. But a lot of models will have them, so it's just a problem you got to deal with. Because if you don't remove them, they will show up when you paint them. Especially if you're going to be dry brushing. Oh, you have to get rid of them if you're going to dry brush. But, like I said, this requires a real light filing, because these are very minor. One place you really want to look for is along gun barrels, because for some reason they always seem to wind up showing up there. Now, where I took off those pieces, there's a small chunk that I'm going to have to file away, but that's not going to require much because I cut pretty close down to the model itself. So, and there's a little mold lines along the skirt of this hover vehicle, but not a whole lot. And you want to look at corners, because, you know, sometimes they'll have little bumps like this one did. And again, I have to do a little extra filing where I cut that piece off. But all in all, it's not that big a deal. So, okay. And now the filing's done. Like I said, there wasn't that much to file, so I didn't have a whole lot to do. But, okay, now, the next thing you want to do before you even think of gluing anything together is you really want to test fit your pieces. Because if you don't test fit your pieces before you add glue, you could wind up putting glue and then putting down the piece to try to connect it, and it won't fit properly because maybe there's some extra metal there that you missed, or maybe the socket wherever, you know, you're trying to put in isn't big enough, or you might have a problem you have to fix. But, you know, that's just something you need to check on. So, I'm test fitting the turrets. They're fine. That's fine for that one. Test fit this one. Yeah, that's fine. The turrets fit well. Now, I'm gonna test fit the hover bases. They don't quite fit right. They're a little too loose for my taste. So there's one of two ways you can fix this. You can take a pin vise and drill it out a little bit so the point will fit in better, or you can go the route that I usually choose and snip off take your side snips and snip off a tiny piece of that and then fit it again to see if it fits right. Now I snipped off just enough and it fits right now. There's no movement whatsoever, so that'll be fine. That's ready to be glued. Now I got to move on to the next one, see if that'll do. as you can see, there's just a little bit of there's some movement there. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did to the first one, snip off a small amount. When you're doing this, only snip off a tiny amount, because if you have to, you can go back and snip off more. But once you cut it off, it's gone. You ain't putting it back on. Now I'll test fit it again, and there's no movement. So I cut off just enough. So, oh wait, there's something else I forgot to say you might want to have on hand. Because I am using Zap-A-Gap, which is kind of like a super glue, you might want to have Zip Kicker on hand. That'll almost instantly dry the product. But if you do use that, the bond will be a little bit weaker. But there is a way to get around that, and I will tell it to you in a few moments. But I'm going to put the turrets on. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here. Nope, not a whole lot, because this stuff's pretty good, so I don't need a whole lot. I don't know if you can really see how much I put in there, but not a whole lot. So I'll just piece it together, and you know, it fits, so no problem there. So I'll just let that sit. Some people don't like to glue the turrets in so they can move it around, you know, freely, but I don't. I just glue them so I don't actually have to worry about the piece coming off. I've even seen some people use magnets to attach them, but again, that's something I just don't do. But okay, and that fits in, that's glued, but it's not dry, so I kind of have to stop right there for a moment with those. So what I'm going to do, since I am going to be placing these on bases, I'm just going to go ahead and glue these to the base, or I'm going to glue the hover bases to the hexes. So get that done. Whoop. I'm going to put a small drop of glue on the bottom of the hover base, and then just drop it onto the center of the hex base. No big deal there. And I'm going to go to the next one, do the same thing. That's done. Drop it, try and get it center as much as I can. And that's done. Now, we'll put the cap back on my stuff here. Since this has been sitting, now the way to get around the weaker bonds is to let it dry naturally for a moment or two. Now, especially with mechs, you want to let it dry for a moment or two, but that's not quite as vital with the putting a turret on. So now, since that's done, actually, you know what? I'm going to grab my aerosol. It's the same product, but aerosol. So here we go. Put a small spray. And now it's glued, done. Gotta let the zip kicker dry off for a little bit, but no big deal. Another quick spray. And it's glued on. See? Not falling off. Okay, now, while that dries a little bit, put some, now these bases, close enough to done, because wood to metal, it holds pretty quick. Not that big a deal. Put a small drop of glue on the stem of the hover base. And quickly place the tank on. I don't know if you can see this, but you can. And just press and hold it for a moment. And there you go. That one's done. And I'll just do the other one quick here. So that glue drop is on. Place the tank on. Yeah, it's on the base. Hold it for a moment. Now I just gotta sit and let all the pieces dry fully, and they'll be done. Okay, I don't know if any of you found that helpful. If you did, great. I guess I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.